Once upon a time, this was a Formula One steering wheel. A humble device used simply to fulfill its job description and steer the front wheels of the racing car, and nothing else. Today though, a Formula One car's steering wheel looks like this. It still performs its basic function, but nowadays it does a whole lot more than that. Now it's a control centre for the entire car, the interface through which the drivers manage just about every function available to them in the cockpit, condensed down to fit right into the palm of their hands. These days, they even come with a miniature screen to provide the drivers with critical information and control menus right in front of their eyes. The whole setup looks extremely complex, a daunting, dizzying array of switches, buttons, dials and displays. But now go and look at the steering wheel in your own car. It probably looks something like this, which is a far cry from how they used to look not too long ago. Just like in F1, road car steering wheels have come a long way over the years, and again, like in Formula One, they're now home to an array of switches, buttons and dials that control all sorts of different aspects of the car. You may never have realised it, but you might be controlling as many functions from your steering wheel as you motor around town as Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton do when they're doing battle on the world's most challenging racetracks. And the design of your car's steering wheel might be directly linked to some of the smartest F1 innovations too. Let's start with one very clever invention which came from Grand Prix racing and has now trickled down into millions of cars on the road today. In the late 1980s, legendary F1 designer John Barnard, who was responsible for a host of groundbreaking ideas still used in the sport today, was at Ferrari and he was trying to solve a problem that had bugged him for years. He wanted to streamline the cockpit of his new car for aerodynamic reasons, and he hated that he had to keep adding a bulge to accommodate the gear lever and the driver's hand to operate it. And then he had a brainwave. What if he could do away with the gear lever altogether? And with that goal in mind, Barnard and his technical team developed a new semi-automatic gearbox along with two pedals on the rear of the steering wheel which the drivers would use to change up and down the gears. It wasn't a completely new idea. Ferrari had in fact tried to perfect a similar system almost a decade earlier, but Barnard finally got his new system race ready on the team's 1989 Challenger, the 640. And with Nigel Mansell at the wheel, the revolutionary new car took victory in its very first Grand Prix. With the concept proved, Ferrari had changed Formula One and high-performance road cars forever. Skip forward to today, and every single Formula One Challenger on the grid uses the same Ferrari-inspired paddles on the rear of the steering wheel, as do a host of semi-automatic road cars. Of course, there's plenty of other crossovers between Formula One technology and road car steering wheels too. The strap switch, for example, is one of the most important on the steering wheels of the Mercedes-powered Formula One cars like the Aston Martin AMR 24. It controls the power unit modes and is used to help balance performance with reliability. For example, the driver might use a different strap mode for their final push in qualifying when they need the absolute maximum power deployment over one lap, compared to various phases during the race where the hybrid system might need to recover more energy or to save its temperatures. You'll often hear a driver's race engineer informing him which strap mode to select over team radio.
Strap 7 is free.
Now you might think that's a really racing specific function, but take another look at your car's steering wheel. It may well house the controls for different driving settings as well. For example, you might have options for Sport or Eco mode, which will alter the way your car delivers the power available. It's a similar concept, except when driving your car, you won't have a race engineer telling you over the radio which one to select. Speaking of the radio, you likely have the ability to turn the volume up and down, change the station or skip track without removing your hands from the wheel of your car. Obviously, Formula One drivers aren't listening to tunes or podcasts as they race around the track, but they are all hooked up to their own in-car radios, which they use to communicate with their race engineers and others on the team pit wall. And just like in your road car, they have a button on the steering wheel they can press to activate it and speak to the team. And again, just like your road car, they can turn the volume of the radio up or down thanks to the controls on the wheel. You might also have a cruise control button on your own steering wheel. Most F1 drivers aren't exactly prone to cruising around the track, so they'd have no need for such a button. But they do need to regulate their speed at certain points across the race weekend, notably in the pit lane. At every Grand Prix, there is a pit lane speed limit in place for safety reasons, and breaking it can come with a hefty fine or even an in-race penalty. To avoid getting caught out, there's a handy button on the steering wheel that the drivers can press, and it automatically keeps them underneath that speed. There are other similarities too. You might also have a set of controls on your steering wheel which allow you to scroll through various menus or displays, perhaps to show you what your oil temperature is or your tyre pressures are, for example. A Formula 1 steering wheel has the exact same thing, with rotary dials allowing the drivers to select a host of different settings on the car, including different launch modes, or to adjust the brake bias or differential balance, which allows the driver to adjust their car's setup through different phases of each corner. Of course, there are plenty of F1 specific controls not required on a road car. Perhaps one of the most significant is the DRS button. This switch activates the flap on the rear wing, which opens to give the driver a speed boost along the straights. The drivers also have a drinks button to allow them to take on board crucial fluids during a race. Meanwhile, road car steering wheels have controls for things not required in Formula 1, like headlights, indicators and windscreen wipers. F1 engineers never stop looking for innovative ways to find a competitive edge, and a few years ago Mercedes came up with a new concept for using their steering wheel in a way never seen before. At pre-season testing in 2020, Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas were seen pushing and pulling their steering wheels at the beginning and the ends of the straights. The paddock was initially baffled, but then it emerged that the Silver Arrows had fitted a new invention that they called dual axis steering, or DAS, which allowed the drivers to alter the alignment or toe angle of the front wheels to help with tyre temperatures and stability in the corners. It was a revolutionary idea and a novel way of using the steering wheel, but it was banned at the end of the 2020 season as a cost-saving measure, and it's unlikely that this particular innovation will ever find its way onto your road car. Like everything in Formula 1, the increasingly complex steering wheels will continue to evolve whenever a team comes up with a clever new idea to make their car faster or more efficient. And as road cars evolve too, their steering wheels are following on in Formula 1's wheel tracks. On both high-performance F1 cars and their everyday road-going counterparts, turning the front wheels is now just one of many functions performed by the once humble steering wheel.